filling up the room pretty much. So why don't we get started? Let's start with introductions and let's do the folks that are physically at the county offices first, and then we'll do the Zoom folks second. That's okay. Let's start with Nick. Why don't we start with you?
Great, thank you. I'm Nick Leland. I'm the county administrator, and I serve as an ex officio member of the audit committee.
Dave Gibbons, retired county internal auditor.
Howdy, Derek. A duck. I'm a duck today.
Big day tomorrow.
Aaron K, 2BD, to be determined.
County internal auditor.
Joe Healy, public member.
Summer Sears, public member.
Bill Anderson, public member.
Robert Hill, chief financial officer, county. Lee Randall, facilities department and staff member.
Okay. And Commissioner DeBone in the back, I see.
Yeah, Tony DeBone, Deschutes County Commissioner. Good to see you, Dave. I spent 8 years on the committee.
All right, and as far as Zoom goes,
Two more.
Two more hiding.
Oh, we do. Oh, and the hiding there. Okay, there's Eric. Okay, sorry about that. See ya.
I'm Eric Croft, deputy county administrator, also risk manager. My daughter's an Oregon Duck, so I'm a Ducks fan, but I'm also a Nittany Lion. So.
Oh.
Yes.
Oh no.
Whitney Hale, also
Hi, Whitney.
county administrator and a proud University of Oregon graduate.
All right. Good. Okay.
Angie in the room here too.
Okay.
Angie Powers, admin.
Hi, Angie, I can't. You're behind.
I'm hidden
You're
now.
behind someone's Zoom thing.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's why I can't see her. Okay, let's start with the folks that are coming in by Zoom. Daryl Parrish, public member.
Jody Birch, public member.
Kristen Tony, public member.
Anyone else? Yeah, there's others.
Yeah, I'm Chris Doty, road department director. It's Friday, it's 3 o'clock. They keep me here till 4.
Well, welcome.
What the heck?
Welcome, Chris.
Let's see what this is all about.
All right, welcome aboard.
And I'm Christine Adams Wanberg. I'm the elected Washington County auditor.
Hi, Christine. Thanks for joining us.
No problem. Thanks for having me. And by the way, I am not exactly a duck, but I'm a mom of a duck. And
Okay.
I send a good portion of my money to the University of Oregon right now. So yay.
All right.
On the bandwagon.
Exactly.
All right. Okay.
Oh, and then Peter.
Have I missed anyone?
Peter.
Peter. Who have I missed?
Peter Gutowski, Community Development Director, like Chris, just wanting to listen in on the conversation today as it pertains to the audit committee. So thanks for allowing me to just sit in the bleachers. Appreciate it.
Absolutely, Chris. Welcome to today's event. Okay, that's everyone, right? We haven't missed anyone.
Right.
So why don't we get started with the meeting? And I think the first item of order of business, and really the only order of business, has to do with the discuss the audit proposal from the county administrator, which essentially is to reduce the audit staff from 2 FTEs to 1.5, based on some budgetary issues. So why don't we get started, Nick? I think it's you go first.
Great, thank you, Chair, and good afternoon, audit committee members. I appreciate being here. I'm here and I'm going to summarize the memorandum in the packet. I do want to recognize they've already been introduced, but just you're aware that the CFO is here, Chief Financial Officer Robert Tinzel. So when I finish making some brief opening remarks, then Robert will make some high-level remarks as well regarding the budget situation. Certainly available for your questions regarding the budget. And then Eric Kropp, who you had the introduction with, is our deputy county administrator. He's also our risk manager. And given that program is involved, you have questions about risk management, he's available for that. And Whitney Hale, deputy county administrator as well. And she helps with all of our detailed financial and budgetary matters in administrative services. So we have the team here ready to answer your questions. And again, I'm going to keep my comments at pretty high level, but I'm going to kick it off right now. So you have the memorandum in your packet that summarizes the counties and the administrative services budget situation. I just want to refer those of you that aren't aware that next week we have a big county budget committee meeting. It's our mid-year budget committee meeting. And if you're interested in the bigger picture of what is happening with the county's financial situation and budget situation, I'll refer you to that online meeting packet for next week. Again, we're happy to answer questions about it. We're not prepared to present that presentation that we're going to have to the budget committee today, but I just want you to be aware that there's a lot of information that's just recently been published and available for your review. I want to start by saying that I am a strong supporter of our internal audit team, the work, the office, the program. I have been since I became a county department head back in 2012. Dave is shaking his head. Yes, he recalls when I became, and I'm not going to go into the story, but we started to go through a big e-permitting system change. And I, as a department head, not knowing all that much about the e-permitting systems that we had, because I was more in the long range planning and other aspects of it. David reached out to departments, asked if there were audits, and I welcomed that from the very beginning. Through one of the first actions that I made in October 2021, shortly after I became county administrator, was to approve the changing of the limited duration position to a regular position, which we have to this day. And I just want to say that I experience, and I benefit from the work that our audit team and internal audit team and office provides and prepares every day, as does our entire organization. I think it's really important to state that. In the memorandum, we have made, we summarize how we have made efforts to avoid any staff reductions in administrative services to achieve a $130,000 savings for next fiscal year. And as our chair stated at the beginning, the purpose of this meeting is I did make the difficult decision to reduce the performance auditor position to 0.5 to a half-time position. And I recognize the impact that this may be greater than that 0.5 if we're not able to fill it at the 0.5. It's a reduction from 2 FTE to 1.5, so it's a 25% reduction, but I do recognize it could be up to a 50% reduction either for a short-term or longer-term period. I don't minimize it. This is a painful decision. This is ongoing. I had requests last week that as we were quickly determining, so how do we make this? How do I make this decision in conjunction with the audit office, with the audit committee, with the board of commissioners, and we decided immediately after speaking with the chair and our internal auditor to have today's meeting for your input and discussion. And I will, and of course, wrap this up today as well by stating that based on your input today, or if you decide to take any formal actions or recommendations, we will coordinate to take that and discuss that with the Board of County Commissioners. I coordinated with them about a month ago on the initial decisions that we needed to make, and in short order, and I'll talk about why that is in just a moment, because this is really one of the, this is not the first tough budget decision we're making for next year. The Board of Commissioners made a tough decision on Monday earlier this week, and that's summarized in your memorandum as well, about the board making a decision about how to save $1 million from the general fund in terms of providing direction to staff and how we prepare next year's fiscal year budget. So this is one of many very, very tough and painful decisions that we're considering. And I don't consider this final. I look forward to your input, to the audit committee's input, and again, final coordination with the board. I want to take a minute to just talk about administrative services. I summarized the core functions that we provide in the memorandum, but admin is a small team of 9.75 FTE. And who does that include? That includes myself, our 2 deputy county administrators, our executive assistant, administrative assistant, Angie, who's here, 2 communications staff, 1 strategic initiatives manager, 2 internal audit staff. I'm happy to discuss any of those positions, however you wish. We together provide direct services to the Board of County Commissioners, to Board of County Commission BOCC appointed committees, to departments, and to the community. And maybe this is clear to everybody, but if it's not, I do want to provide the clarity that there are really 3 different funds. You'll see a lot of the same staff located in the same area, and not everybody's aware that, for example, the Board of County Commissioners is its own fund. The risk management program is its own fund, and administrative services is its own fund. So people think about the board's expanding, so what impacts does that have? It doesn't have impacts on the administrative services budget. That is its own separate fund. Again, happy to answer any questions about that. The key is that the savings that we must achieve are in the small administrative services team. So one of that gets to the point of in the memorandum. So now you have a sense of what the admin is and then who we work closely with. In the memorandum, I refer to the upcoming vacancy in risk management with the retirement, providing an opportunity to maintain our team, our staff, while reducing a partial position. So that it gives us the opportunity, and that person is retiring at the end of December. So we have that vacancy that begins on January 1st. And that provides us the opportunity to move an employee from the administrative services division program department to the risk management program. And that does result in direct salary savings to administration. Now I say, I'm not sure, Aaron, if you know where the decision is, and you say, you know, I'm the one that we've talked about moving to the risk management program. I guess I assumed that decision was made, but perhaps it's not. The key is we're either going to be moving forward with a 0.5 FTE or potentially a 1.0 FTE, and that will be, again, depend on your input and my decision in coordination with the Board of County Commissioners, or the board can make that final decision. Yeah.
So are you saying that it could become a 1.0 FTE if we can't fill that 0.5, or are you saying that it's potentially a decision that could be made to reduce it to 1.0?
No, I'm sorry. I should have stated that correctly. Currently, it's 1.0. My proposal is to move it to 0.5, but if the audit committee were to say, no, we actually want to keep the performance auditor at 1.0, so 2.0 for the internal audit office. Yeah, sorry, I should have been clear. Yeah, thank you for the clarification. So that's a decision that is still still forthcoming. So making this decision, I balance the various needs in coordination with our internal team, being our deputy county administrators, of providing those direct services again to the board appointed committees, departments, and the community with this reduction in audit services, which is certainly tough. That concludes my opening remarks. I am more than happy to answer questions, but before turning it back over to our chair, based on coordination earlier today, I can turn it over to our chief financial officer. If you have any opening remarks about the budget, and then we can turn it back to the chair.
My thought was, we want to hear from Elizabeth real soon, but just one thing I think with regards to Phil's question, the difference between the 1.0 and the 0.5 and the 0 in the performance auditor position is we tried to fill in the past that half position performance auditor, and we were just unable to. We floated it out there, and it just never got filled because there was no one that was interested in doing it for that amount of time. So I think that the possibility would be we try to fill that half a position, we would not be able to fill it. And that's kind of the way I understand it. Elizabeth, should we hear from you next, or do you want to have some of the other staff elaborate more on the?
Sure. Or I know Robert, we asked Robert to speak also, but I can go first, and then maybe Robert. Does that make sense?
Yeah, let's do that. I think that makes sense. Unless anybody has any questions right now.
Yeah, Daryl, there were a couple of questions or comments up here.
Oh, I just,
Okay, let's do that.
maybe a small point, but the 0.5 billing, and David has great history, so it was filled in for a period of time, or a temporary period of time.
Okay, well, I don't remember that. Okay.
I also think, and David, you can correct my fuzzy memory, but I think that was on call, not half of an FTE, which I think has a distinguishment in terms of benefits. It was also pre-COVID, which may have some impacts in terms of remote work. So again, fully acknowledging that I understand the difficulty of when we reduce off the full FTE, but I think the fact that it would be benefited and the technology has changed a bit since then were things that we internally considered and made.
You want me to address it right now?
I would defer to the chair.
So on call, it was on call initially with like, I don't know, a specified budget limit, if I recall, like $40,000 or so. That was earmarked for me to have access to additional assistance and try to find somebody to help me do that. So that was the first iteration of the performance auditor role. So that will help you.
Okay, that is helpful. Were there other comments or questions? I can't. No?
No, we're good.
Okay, all right, Elizabeth, why don't you take it?
Okay, I'll jump in. We convened this audit committee meeting, because the audit committee has, the role of advising the Board of County Commissioners on any budget decisions that impact the auditor's office. So I wanted to make sure that you all had a chance to weigh in and provide your advice to the Board of County Commissioners on the proposal. Kind of going back to that history, it was back in 2016 when the audit committee and the county auditor first realized that they needed more capacity to do auditing in the county, that there was more work available, more desire for oversight and transparency than the resources were able to meet. And so started working on finding ways to add to that, and had some on-call work done, and I think some contract staff over the years trying to fulfill that role. But it was never really successful, never really provided the value to the office that David was looking for. I think there's a lot of reasons that could be, it's hard to, we have a lot of continuing education requirements, and so you have to meet all of those requirements, whether you're part-time or full-time. One thing, so it was very limited what those people could do, and so that was a factor, and just their availability made that difficult as well. But then going up to today, kind of talking about what this impact will be on our office. And I think the first thing that's obvious is that we just won't be able to do the same amount of work we were able to do with two people. So we already eliminated a few audits from our plan because our eyes were just bigger than our stomach, I guess, and we just weren't going to be able to get through the work with two of us. But now we have 4 audits left on the plan: recruitment and retention audit, election controls, the homelessness response, and the sheriff's office body cameras audit. And so we're going to have to really select which of those we won't do, because we just really won't have the capacity to do it. But another thing to consider is the quality of the audits. One-person audit shops are not common. All of the other audit shops in the state have more than one person. And the reason for that, other than just the size of the organization, is that the way auditing happens involves a lot of supervision and review and quality control. And Aaron's work is just invaluable to mine. We are always looking over each other's shoulders, talking, bouncing ideas around with each other, collaborating. We do a lot of work together. Without him here, I won't have anyone to talk to. I have colleagues, and I say hi to them in the hall, and we're friendly, but I can't, go in and say, oh gosh, I'm really struggling with this. What do you think? How are we gonna fix that? I mean, for one thing, Nick is everyone's boss, and if he, I don't want to go to his staff with something that I've gotten wrong while I'm auditing. I mean, the other day, Aaron found a weird transaction that made it look like someone in the sheriff's office was taking household garbage to a landfill. I know we talked about it. We figured out, oh, this was really just a mistake, but it wouldn't have really been appropriate for me to go to Eric or Whitney with that. So that's another reason that's going to be really hard. And then finally, I think this kind of highlights a threat to independence of the office, and the reason the county administrator can do this at this time and not wait until the next budget cycle or not go to the Board of County Commissioners is because I'm in his line item. So he really does, he has authority to direct staff within that line item to do what. So if he wants to say, you know what, Aaron, I actually don't need you on audits this week. I need you to go over to risk management. You can special assign him to go over there without that going through a budget change. So I think this sort of brings to light the fact that maybe audit really shouldn't be within that admin line item. So those were my comments, and I just think, given the significance of the proposal, I just wanted the committee to consider it and potentially make a recommendation to the Board of County Commissioners to keep the position funded.
Where is the internal auditor usually in the budget for other cities? I don't know, is it under?
These are, or they're elected.
Maybe
officials.
Christine, can you speak to that?
They're elected.
Most of the elected auditors have their own line item budgets. They have their own separate budgets.
Yeah, so Oregon, Washington, and some in California are a little bit different than the rest of the country. We actually have in Oregon, a lot of the auditors are elected. So for example, the Metro Auditor, the Multnomah County Auditor, City of Portland, Washington County. So those are elected auditors. There are some organizations that have appointed auditors like Jackson County. And Clackamas County's auditor basically reports to their elected treasurer. But normally the budgets for those are very, very distinct from anything in management.
That proposal wouldn't mean Nick didn't oversee the budget of that, because he's still the budget officer, he still has oversight over the whole budget. It would just be that line item still need.
Would be under the treasurer, say.
So that's
Okay.
all I had, Daryl.
What's that?
That's all I had.
Okay. All right. So Robert, I think was gonna add any questions. First of all, I guess we should always ask for questions after someone's provided information. Okay, Robert, why don't you take the floor?
Hey, thank you, Daryl.
Yeah.
I just want to highlight a little bit of Nick's memo as well. Hopefully you all had a chance to read it. There was a small section on the background. It's kind of like, why are we even talking about this? What's the issue? Why is this coming up and how? So I just wanted to, first of all, remind you what's in the packet and then expand on those a little bit. But we've actually started talking about, well, we've been talking about the general fund as a structural imbalance and has had that for many years now. What does that mean? It means where your revenues are lower than your expenditures. And so fortunately, the general fund has had a surplus, beginning working capital reserve, large enough where it's been able to absorb that. So if we look at our trend or history over the last few years, expenditures have been rising about 10%, and then revenues have only been rising about 5% per year. So you can see there's been a problem, and we've been able to fill that in with the gap by the general fund reserves. However, we're looking at the long-term forecast, and some of the board is here. They know we've been looking at this for many years, and we've talked about a fiscal cliff, even though we don't really like to use that word, but that's something we want to avoid. Right, and that has always been kind of pushed out for a few years, but the last couple of years, as we've all experienced, even in our home budgets, you might have noticed this, costs have gone up, COLA, inflations, all these things have contributed to our own higher budget. And in fact, PERS rates, and as we're projecting out our new fiscal year budget, it also includes the new biennium from the state, which again, is setting a new PERS rate. So I mentioned PERS. PERS is going up on average for us about 4.6%, which is more than we originally projected because of multiple items on there. But I say that because we're not going to get into all these details here. Don't worry about it. But as Nick highlighted, on Tuesday, the full budget committee is meeting, and that's where we'll talk about the presentation with a high-level summary of the long-term forecast again. But also we will have a presentation from PERS because that is one of our major expenses that we have at the county. So we'll have that, but after that presentation, then you'll hear from the budget manager, Cam Sparks, on a lot of the areas that we're talking about today. But with personnel costs, revenue coming in, our assessed value only we're budgeting at 4.7%, which is lower than we've had in future years. And yet our expenditures are continuing to increase. So the goal of this whole process is we're being proactive. We're expecting a shortfall beginning as soon as fiscal year 27, where we can't meet our expenditures based on the current revenue unless we take corrective action. So we have to take corrective action early. So we're avoiding those major cuts early. You mentioned other counties that experienced $20 million shortfalls in 1 year. We're not talking about that, right? We're taking proactive measures now. As Nick mentioned, the board has already approved $1 million in savings to the general fund so that we can use other funding or look for ways to provide those services, but we're still left with a gap of about $1.5 million in the general fund. Also contributing to that are internal service funds, which this is an internal service fund. We also put limits on growth within the internal service funds because internal service funds charges also affects the general fund, which pays about 15% of those costs. So that's why we're having caps on internal service funds like finance, facilities, board of county commissioners, admin, internal audit. All of that is included in this process to save the general fund to ensure long-term financial stability. So Budget Office has produced many analysis and come up for each of the areas, how much are targeted savings for each area. And that's where the number came up for admin to include. Here, this targeted savings for admin. Again, just like finance has a targeted savings account, facilities has a targeted savings amount, I should say. So we're all actively looking at this. So we have placed, again, I mentioned internal service funds, general fund is having some limits placed on it. Limited growth and focused savings is really what our theme is for next year, but also TRT funds, which also provide some discretionary funds for the county. But we're also limiting TRT funds to departments as well that know growth in those areas. So we're looking at this very holistically. Today, we're talking about one program area, rightfully so. Part of the process that we have, so in every fund that has to establish savings, we established a limited growth impact form. And what that form is, whatever a decision is made in any area where they have to propose a reduction, that will be included in Nick's fiscal year 26 proposed budget. So Nick, as the budget officer, is tasked with, for ORS, putting together the budget for all funds, including elected officials, right, into one budget. But that document will include these limited growth impact forms where to describe what is the savings that you achieved, how will it impact the community, what services were impacted, and what's the result. Those forms will be included in the proposed budget provided to the budget committee. So the budget committee will look, whatever the result is here from admin, the budget savings from finance, from facilities, from all the other internal service funds, general fund. So they'll be looking at all of the areas across the county holistically of where are these savings going to come from, right? So they'll have to look at all of these. And so this will be one of them. So the good news is if there's a recommendation for the board or the budget committee from Nick, that will be included in this form. So the full budget committee will make those decisions as far as when they're comparing what services are impacted holistically across the county. And this is one of them as well. One of the other things, just so you know, the format we've taken and chosen for this year, we've started way early for fiscal year 26 budget planning. We started in July, right after the board adopted the fiscal year 25 budget. We started meeting with admin and finance because we knew upcoming budgets were going to be challenged and we had to make proactive measures early on. So we started meeting in July, met through September, then we started incorporating departmental meetings to make sure we had a collaborative process with other departments impacted from the general fund, TRT funds, and internal service funds. So we've all been coming along with this information, but it's also part of GFOA best practices. They actually have a GFOA fiscal first aid where they say, first you need to look at bridging the gap, then you need to reform and transform. So this is just a minor step in this whole process because again, we want to be proactive in making tough choices. And there's going to be tough choices this year. This is already one of them. We've already had other departments try to proactively or preemptively try to contact the board or, talk about ways to make some savings when it might not be necessary for them, right? But what the budget committee will be tasked with is looking at all savings areas across the board. And again, because we have to reset the expenditure curve by lowering the projected growth rate to achieve the financial stability and sustainability of the fund. We can't get away from that. Finally, I just want to say, let's see. Actually, I made all my points. I think that was quite a bit, but really the point was we've been working hard on this for a lot because that's our fiscal responsibility and stewardship. And there are going to be tough choices across the county. This is one of them. So I really appreciate the feedback and the information that you can provide to Nick as the budget officer, and then the recommendation that'll go forward to the county. This is the last thing now. As far as funding, I know the last year, there was a request from the internal audit to be in a separate fund, and finance actually recommended we set them up in a separate org so that their budget, their revenues, their expenditures are separated within an org, so it is easily identifiable for reporting purposes, just because the county had a history of creating a fund for everything imaginable. You'd think we just have a lot of funds in this county compared to many funds. So we made that internal decision, but if there is a recommendation for something else, obviously we consider that as well. And I worked for counties where they didn't have an elected official, but it was appointed internal auditors, performance auditors really. And so has been a luxury to have two internal auditor positions, because not every county does have that. Even larger counties than this, obviously accepting elected officials in other counties.
Robert, question.
Any questions?
When the internal auditor does an audit of,
So you're talking about peeling internal audit over into an org, its own org, which is an organizational segment, right? It's a way to divide your org chart. So is it like similar to a department? Does it function like a department?
So the structure is a fund, which we're talking about funds, and then it's part of a fund where it used to be their budget. Internal audit under the same funds.
Like a department within?
Here we use departments like
Differently,
like
at a higher
finance,
level.
facilities, at a higher
Gotcha,
level.
okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Thank you.
Robert, question? Can you hear me? Hello? Oh,
Oh, we lost Daryl. He's speaking. Oh, Angie.
Okay, we're getting that error.
Yeah.
testing 1, 2, 3.
Now we got you.
Got me, okay. Question, when the internal auditor audits, say, a grant fund or an enterprise fund like solid waste, is the cost for that covered under internal services, or is it funded by the general fund, or how does that work? Is there any way to offset some of that cost by charging an enterprise fund or a grant or something like that?
The internal audit is considered part of an internal service fund, just like admin, finance, facility. So their costs are allocated out across the county regardless of the work they're working on. So it's not directly charged based on who they're auditing. It's spread out, I believe, based on budget countywide. So their costs are spread through the cost allocation process equally across all departments.
Okay, so it's not based on where they're actually working at a particular, okay. Would there be any benefit to doing it that way, or as far as would it bring more revenue into the audit function?
I'd say I'll let Winnie answer, but what I've seen in other places as well, performance audit, internal audit is typically part of an ISF, not a direct charge. But
To tag on to that, Robert, I would recommend, if asked, probably not. I think we see administrative burden with that type of a system, and in some instances, we see departmental resistance to want to sort of pay for their portion of what they're being charged for. So I think for those reasons, that may not be an incredibly effective model for this function.
Okay, just thought it was a valid question. Thanks.
Is there any way, I don't know if this is even possible, to split the risk management that's retiring? So have the person, half risk management, half internal auditing, that one FTE kind of do it's not a perfect situation, but potentially, that's even, can't happen.
I would be opposed to that, because of our independence, that, we wouldn't want someone to feel like they, were reporting to Eric and to me, and then what if I was auditing Eric, and then would that person feel like, oh, I feel like I can say about my boss?
No, I get that. Yes, I can totally get that. Just-
But it was a good thought.
I was wondering the same
Yeah,
thing.
yeah. Good question.
But it is a really good thought. It's, I can understand what Elizabeth is saying, but we could have come up with something like that.
Well, the elephant in the room is what's option B, if we're stuck with the personnel decision. And I know you maybe don't want to speak to it, but I guess I'll ask it anyway. What if the commissioners decide we're not gonna cut off the audit department? Who's next in line? What considerations are there if you're willing to educate us about that?
Yeah, I'd prefer not to talk about the staffing piece of it because that's very sensitive, but we don't believe we're in a position to save the full amount, and I can defer to Whitney through just other reductions on just travel and training, just things like that nature. We think that the only way we're able to do it is some partial FTE reduction. So I would need to work closely with the commissioners, along with Eric and Whitney, on, okay, these are the positions we have. We need to find what does the next option look like? And what other options are there the board may want to consider if we wanted to keep this position full. Whitney, I don't know if you want to jump in. I know you've been super
No,
helpful.
you
with this.
nailed it, and I think just with respect to the sensitivity of it and also kind of the committee's focus area, I think we'd prefer to keep today's discussion kind of focused on this proposal, although I think it's a very fair question.
Yeah, and I think this made great points. I mean, I fully understand why benefits of two, like everything that you said, and I appreciate it. I don't know if David Gibbons is going to jump in and offer any more perspectives, but that's up for the chair and committee because it's tough.
Daryl, did you want to have time for David and Christine?
Yeah, absolutely. Sure. I mean, David did this for a long time and has a lot of insight. So yeah, absolutely. David, whatever you can offer, please take the floor.
I appreciate that. My goal in establishing the performance auditor originally was to really see this office succeed, both in my work as an auditor and both in my obvious foresight of my retiring down the road, was to make sure there was a continuum, that there was good systems in place, we could transition the culture, and knowing that it's not easy for a one-person audit shop to succeed. And part of what I provided the budget committee and the board at the time was a lot of benchmarking I had done about, why basically most other counties have more than one auditor. And so they were very, very magnanimous in terms of providing me another additional position. I showed that there was work to be done, and I had the audit committee's support, of course, because there was work to be done. And we tried limited duration. Well, we tried the original on-call positions. Elizabeth pretty much hit it on the head in terms of getting people with qualifications that have the time when you want to use it is difficult. I'd say that would probably be the same with a solo half-timer. Be very difficult to get somebody with training and be able to control that time enough to get what you want out of them. We have two auditors right now who are both nationally recognized award-winning reports. They're great auditors. It's what I wanted to leave as a legacy here, was to make sure you guys had a good team, a good office, a strong office, and have it. I'm just hopeful that you guys find a way to maybe shoehorn it in somehow. So I know there's difficult choices. I always saw that, like, oh, they're hiring me instead of an officer. How do you justify that? There is all these different risks and these different things that happen. Auditors are uniquely positioned within the organization to give such great guidance to each and every department and leadership. So it's one of those things that I think, you know, I'd say once you dial it back, you probably are gonna notice it. You're probably gonna feel it in a way that you hadn't thought, because they're providing you a picture into how to fix things before it's even a problem. And how do you quantify that? I mean, so again, I'd say, you know, these guys are doing a good job. Hopefully you'll find the range to keep doing it. So that's my 2 cents.
Okay, anyone else off of that?
I'd like to speak after
Yeah,
if David's done.
I tell you what, Christine, why don't you go ahead, and then we'll probably hear from some community members after that, but go ahead,
Okay.
take the floor.
Okay, great. Thanks so much. Just again, I don't know if this is all public meeting and everything, but for the record, my name is Christine Adams-Wanberg. I'm the elected Washington County Auditor. So I can certainly understand the challenges that your jurisdiction is going through. I will tell you that I'm in Washington County. We are dealing with $20 million plus in budget cuts. We've been dealing with it for a couple of years, and we're going forward with very likely each department taking a 10% cut next year. So I can certainly understand the challenges that is for an audit shop, especially when you're small. My audit shop has 3 FTE, has me and 2 other auditors, and we are considered a small shop. We're not 1, but we are 3, and I have to tell you that one of the things I find the most important in our shop is, even though we're only 3 people and technically we're understaffed compared to our peers, which have 1 FTE per 100,000 population. One of the things I value so much in our shop is that we do have, at least between the 3 of us, the ability to collaborate on projects. It's so important to be able to have somebody to bounce those ideas off of, because it provides different perspectives. It provides different ideas about methodologies. It provides different ideas about recommendations and everything. And it really is a profession that is best done in collaboration with other auditors. Now, I will tell you, I'm an elected auditor. I had to run for this job, which was not easy. It was not easy at all. But really, having an audit function is an investment. It is an investment in efficiency, and it's an investment in public trust. And really, when you have an audit function, you have help basically implementing policies and programs more effectively. They identify cost savings. They help reduce risk to the county. You can have decisions that are based on more solid data and more risk awareness. You have better detection and prevention of fraud. And then you also enhance public confidence and trust in the local government. That is something I see every single time I have somebody who contacts my office that says, hey, not just like an ombudsman, but like, hey, this is an issue. I think you need to audit it. And the fact that our jurisdiction actually has an audit organization actually does bring more public trust in the government from our members. They feel like they have an avenue that they can reach out to if they feel like there's a big issue. It's also something that employees can reach out to if they feel that there is some sort of a policy, procedure, structural issue, or regulatory issue, that they have somebody they can have that's outside of management to say, hey, what's going on here? So, but in order to have that, you have to have a strong audit function that requires that organizational independence, that really good stakeholder support, and sufficient funding. Sufficient funding is really, really important. In this case, what's going to happen, and I know Elizabeth has already said that, if you decrease it to a half, that 1 FTE to a half, I will tell you that you are not going to probably get anybody who's going to apply for that job. I will tell you, as Washington County, we have a bigger pot to recruit from, and even I have huge challenges trying to recruit for 1 full-time FTE that has the knowledge, skills, and abilities for a government auditor. People can make far more money in the private sector, and government auditing is very much a niche area. It's very specialized in particular subject matter. So I just really want to encourage you to retain both positions, not decrease the 1 to a half FTE. You have right now, I would say, a stellar audit shop. Your audit shop right now is award winning. It's well known in the profession. It is well respected. And you have invested in it so it can be that. If you're going to decrease it, and very much like what David had said, you're going to have problems, because what I have typically found as well, you know, when you put something like, okay, auditor is easy to cut now, but you're going to have a short-term, essentially a short-term, you know, savings in there, but it's going to have a long-term implication. Trying to get that FTE back at all is super hard when you're going to be pitted up against, you know, something like a sheriff's deputy or a public health worker or an LUT inspector. Now, granted, they're not all the same funding sources. I get that. So I just want to encourage you to retain that position the way it is to a full-time position. I think it's going to help you more longer term. I totally understand the budget implications, but I think this is going to kind of bite you in the fanny long term if you're not careful. Thank you. Appreciate your time.
No, I appreciate your comments, because that's what I'm thinking. If we are facing such an economic hardship, what you two together do, I believe, really brings clarity to another side. I mean, I know Robert and your team are looking at costs, and I keep going. Go back to 2019 when we weren't spending so much money, when we didn't get 38.4 million in from ARPA, all this money that has been going through our system, all the millions that we have spent, and what we've really gotten for that money on so many cases, I know it's incredibly debatable. I just feel like shorting your department at this time is really not appropriate. So I think we should really try and find a different place. Just seeing the work you do, your diligence, and you're nationally recognized. I just feel like you're really important. If we are really facing, we want to be ahead of them. They've been 20 million in the red for a while, I believe, and we do not want to go to 20 million in the red. But I feel like you have to be independent, but we need to work together. And just a couple little things that I've seen out there in the community, you know, the fact that I wasn't given a receipt, you know, at the transfer station that day. I mean, like, oh my gosh, I'm calculating in my head how much money somebody could pocket on the side, and that immediately got cleaned up. And then, you know, when I saw the vehicle that was donated that had brand new tires on it, I'm like, why would we give a vehicle with brand new tires on it? That was, at least as I know, $1,623 to put brand new tires. And I so appreciate having you guys. I can go and tell you this when I see this, and I know you will like actually put it somewhere and know that it's something that we have to follow up on. I feel like our new sheriff is really incredibly cost conscious, and I think that's going to really help there. But you know, we've added a lot of employees. We've remodeled so many different rooms since I've been here 6 years. And I do know, I did ask 2 days ago, I have actually saved the county $144,000 by not taking PERS. Just me, little me, not taking PERS. I mean, and you said what PERS is going to go up even more than we thought. It's unbelievable what that's going to cost us. And so we've got those major things that are just growing, and yet we've got to really like, okay, what if we have to cut back 10%? Just a thought. And nobody wants to really go there and have to cut back 10%, but I don't think this cut is really, I think it's the unintended consequences. I believe you need to, we need the collaboration in that office.
Another thing that Christine said that made sense to me is that we've got a great team now. We may go down to a half and not fill it and struggle, and we want then, okay, let's go back to 2. And we may not have the team that we have now down the road. It could be a ripple effect for a long time, and we've got a great team in place right now.
Whenever we've placed like a half a job at half FTE the last so many years, we've never filled those positions. I would go like, why are you even bothering to ask someone to work half-time? Because if someone wants to work, they actually probably want to work full-time. But they definitely, the health department was always adding half, and they weren't filled. And I can't imagine we could have a half-time auditor.
Yeah, it really didn't work last time we tried it.
I've been a local government auditor, and just our area and part-time positions, you're not going to fill it. If you bring this down to a half, you've brought the audit down to 1 person. And I'll echo that you need more than 1 person. It's critical to have the second set of eyes on things, and having just one set, they can save you money down the road. If this is the cut you make, you're cutting to one. It's not a half FTE. But we should really look at the audit horizon of looking at effectiveness and efficiency audits. They're a type of performance audit where we're looking at what adds value and what doesn't to help further save money. I was a little concerned to find out that we're doing something on January 1st. Like, seems a little scrambled, but I understand the budget concerns. I've dealt with it at being finance director of a growing city and even at Ben Park and Rec. So I get it, but I think if there's a way to look at it differently, is there every role add value? Is there another role that could go down to half and still be able to recruit? I'm just afraid with this cut, it's cutting to one. It's not really cutting half.
Okay. Let's see. Back. Okay, let me just make the comment. I don't think there's anybody on the committee that would think that the county should ignore the budget shortfall issue. Obviously, that's the biggest issue the county has to deal with. It. Can't put the head in the sand. It's just going to get worse if you don't deal with it now. Having said that, I have seen I think the audit function right now, Deschutes County is operating at full speed. It's operating on all 8 cylinders. Elizabeth and Aaron are a tremendous team. They're completing a lot of good work, doing a really good job, and winning awards and all of that. So I really think that as audit committee members, it's really our responsibility to make some kind of recommendation to the board for the county to try to find another way to do this. I think that's probably all we can do. That's probably all the authority we have, but we should use what authority we do have to make that suggestion, because I think that's the right suggestion for us to make. Anyone else?
I agree. We can sign some, I don't know what the process is for that, but I agree with that.
I think we would probably take a vote on that and then have that.
Daryl, I'd also like to chime in.
Yeah, go ahead, Summer. Yeah, please. Everyone who wants to comment should. Summer, you're up.
I think you guys all know my background. I work in finance, specifically with local governments. And I'm also a former auditor of local governments. So I can only imagine how painful this must be for you guys. I understand having to go through budget cuts and having to make decisions, and it really comes down to priorities, right? What value is any function that we're looking at cutting or increasing, really providing to the organization and to the citizens, right? And I would ask you to prioritize this function, because I feel like it has great value. And it's professionally, but also personally is where that's coming from, because I see and hear, both personally and professionally, the impact of the lack of trust in local government. And it kills me, right? Working with everyone that is in local government and how hard they try, they like kill themselves to do the best work they possibly can. And yet there's huge mistrust. So this function, I see in kind of 2 components. I see a risk management component, and then I see the improvement component, and both are valuable. On the risk component, that's where I tend to lead, because it's risk versus opportunity, right? And just being human, probably, I guess I'm focused more on the risk side, but the county has scarce resources, and as a citizen, I would like the county to do whatever it takes to protect those resources. And this is a fantastic way to do it. It's the way to do it. It's the accountability and the transparency to the public. So I also have history with the committee. I've been on the committee a long time. So I will say that I've seen over the years the plan, right? So our committee is presented a potential plan for the next fiscal year of what we want internal audit to look at or focus on. And for years, it's been this list of really important items that we can never get to and never even get close to. Before, it was like less than half of these really important topics, risks and opportunities were able to be covered by internal audit. By no fault of their own, there's just not the capacity, right? So when we were able to get the additional FTE, which the committee recommended to the commission, we saw an improvement in that. Obviously, there's more capacity and it's better, but there is still every year the audit plan and really important risks and really important opportunities that the county could make use of that we're not able to get to. And that's with 2 internal auditors. So cutting it back down to 1 is going to just move us backwards in terms of being able to make those opportunities and manage risk and build trust with the citizens. So.
Very good points. Let's see, who have we not heard from that would like to speak? Is Jody still with us?
Yep, I'm here.
Yeah, Jody, you have anything you'd like to add?
I'll keep it short. I really think most people have, covered it very well. Obviously, it's a complex topic, fully understand the budget constraints and, everything that goes along with it. No decision in any way is taken lightly. But obviously, as a member of the audit committee too, the priority of keeping the audit function whole with the 2s, having the backup for the individuals, people to bounce things off of, not going backwards, and agree a lot with what Summer especially just said. So that's it.
Thank you.
Daryl, this is Lee Randall.
Oh, yes, Lee. Join.
I just wanted to mention, if this is going to a vote or a motion, as a staff representative, that I'm not sure it's appropriate that I participate in a staffing recommendation to the Board of Commissioners. And so I'll just abstain from the motion or the vote.
I think that makes sense. Okay. So why don't we, anybody else before we start talking about a motion? And I think that's the right thing for us to do is formalize a motion and have that sent forward. Anybody, unless somebody here disagrees with that or wants to discuss that further. Hearing no one. So let's talk about putting pen to paper, so to speak. Yeah, I mean, just general statement, I would think that the audit committee would recommend that the internal audit function at Deschutes County remain at 2 FTE. Or do we need to say any more than that?
I have some pause about that. Frank,
yeah, go ahead.
And because obviously Nick needs to be able to do his job. That's a consideration as well. And
sure.
A motion to say, really make sure you think hard about this. I mean, absolutely, obviously. But I have a hard time I don't see the whole picture anywhere close to what Nick does, or probably anyone at this table does, frankly. So I have a hard time voting yes to that motion. I think so I have a little bit of apprehension about telling Nick to just keep it at 2.
Okay. It's a recommendation from the audit committee to the board. That's really all it is. And you're right. Nick's the budget officer. He's ultimately the final proposal that goes to the board is going to come from the budget officer, not from us. But it's just, I think it's us taking a look at the part of the budget that we're responsible for and to make a recommendation to the board. That's really all we're doing. That's all we can do. That's all we have the authority to do, I believe. I'm sure, in fact, I'm positive.
I'd like to request we reword a motion.
Yeah, please. Yeah, go ahead. I'm not a wordsmith it.
I'm not either. I'm not either. So I'm just throwing stuff out there, right?
Okay.
I would prefer a motion, and I can go ahead and make a motion if we want to just start with something. Yeah, why don't I just do that? So I'll make a motion that the audit committee formally advise county administration and the board of commissioners to prioritize the internal audit function and to look for other areas to cut or additional revenues to make in order to balance the budget.
Second.
That's good. All right. Anyone have any, before we put this to a vote, does anyone have any further comments, thoughts, suggestions? Okay, we have a motion in a second. Summer, I don't think you need to restate that. Do we? Although we need to
Please don't make me restate it.
We have it recorded, right? So
Okay.
pull it off the recording, worded, and
we have the expert on it.
Excellent. Okay. So we have a motion and we have a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Not hearing none. Abstentions. We have Lee. Anyone else? Okay.
I have a question. Am I legally allowed to vote? Okay. All right. So I'm with it. Thank you, Summer.
All right. Yeah, Summer. Thank you. All right. That's that. Anything else?
Just a thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Pretty thanks.
Yeah, Nick.
I don't envy what you guys are going through, and
Yeah.
good luck.
Yes,
And
good
thank
luck.
you.
And go to.
Nobody.
No, I didn't say that.
I would just audit committee members next week.
I was just gonna make one closing comment. Thank you for the
Yeah.
recommendation, obviously, for Nick to consider. But I just want to reiterate this, that the internal audit committee recognizes these are the exact tough decisions that the budget committee
Yeah.
is gonna have to make.
Real.
When we come forward with, when the budget includes $3 million worth of savings across the board in different areas. And fortunately, you were able to share, an hour worth of advocacy for this, but the board won't have as much time on all the other areas. But their job and the budget committee will be tough. So I just wanted to give a shout out to the work of the budget committee, and because this year is looking different than in other years. So it's going to be a tough process. So thank you for all the input.
And
It sounds like we can-
proactive.
Yes.
Not many local governments are able to do that
Yes.
or willing to do that. So,
Or
yeah.
Sounds like we can tune in
Federal.
online if we want to. as well, right? Okay. Well, I think our business at hand is complete. So let's adjourn at 4:04.
Thanks, Darren.
Thank you.
Thanks all. Thank you.